It's always something with Wells Fargo. So if you're one of the thousands or hundreds of thousands or probably even millions of small business owners who is looking for a way to get a payroll protection loan, and if you're watching this video, I'm guessing that you're one of them, specifically through Wells Fargo, you may have been surprised to log in to your bank account or go on to Wells Fargo's website today and find that they were no longer accepting PPP loans. This despite the fact that you would probably be surprised to know that they were accepting applications for them at all. Turns out on Friday, they weren't ready to hand out these loans, and they had a microsite up that said, hey, coming soon, we'll let you know when we have more information. As a valued Wells Fargo customer, we'll be sure to give you an update. And you probably saw that same page on Saturday. And then today on Monday, except today there was a link to a press release announcing that they're not going to hand out any more loans. No more applications. They're focusing on small businesses with under 50 employees and nonprofits, of which you're probably one of those businesses. And you did not get a chance to apply. It turns out the application window was open for a very short period of time on Sunday, at which point Wells Fargo took on applications for about $10 billion worth of loans, or about 3% of the $349 billion allocated by the SBA to back these loans. Wells Fargo, as the second biggest bank in America, you think would have the capacity to take on, I don't know, more than that? JP Morgan has already taken on something like $28 billion worth of those loans. Bank of America will certainly take on a lot more. So why Wells Fargo? Why are they capping it at $10 billion? Why only these small businesses? Somehow worse than Wells Fargo surprising you, valued business customer, with a link to a press release telling you, nope, sorry, we tried. Worse than that is the reason for this, which, if you've been watching Netflix's Dirty Money and saw the episode about Wells Fargo, is because for years Wells Fargo's bankers and sales reps were creating hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of fake accounts and other lines of business solutions, as they call them, to increase commissions and pump up their stock price, even though it actually cost them more money to service these non-existent accounts. It was fraud. A few years ago, they were slammed by the Federal Reserve, which capped their assets at $1.95 trillion. Guess what everyone forgot to mention last week? Wells Fargo only had room at the beginning of this year for about $20 billion in additional assets. As of last week, that number shrunk to $10 billion. And guess what? That's how much in loans Wells Fargo is able to give out within this cap, within the regulation imposed on them by the Federal Reserve because they were defrauding their own customers to pump up their stock price. Now, granted, new leadership in Wells Fargo, and they're working hard to create a different environment from, I don't know, defrauding your most valued business covers. We get it. However, Wells Fargo, in trying to play by the rules, now can't give out more than $10 billion in loans. In fact, they never notified customers that the application window was even open on Sunday. I'm a customer. I didn't get it. I've had a business account with them for, I don't know, 7, 8 years. A lot of money in there right now too, believe it or not. So guess what? Wells Fargo is screwing customers who have their accounts, and other banks like Bank of America are only accepting loan applications for customers who currently have checking, loan, or business savings accounts or something like that, which means Wells Fargo customers are effectively screwed. There are some other options, and we'll touch on those in a second. Here's the crazy part, though. Somehow, Wells Fargo might get bailed out again, and it actually might be for a good reason. So, easy answer for this is, hey, the Federal Reserve can, I don't know, lift this restriction, allow Wells Fargo to hand out more than, I don't know, 3% of the total loans, and then worry about it later and further create an environment where Wells Fargo can continue defrauding its customers, yada, yada, yada. Well, sort of. Just before I started recording this, Steve Gleason on CNBC reported that the Federal Reserve, to the rescue, yet again, will create a facility, we don't know what that means, to allow banks who can't give out loans due to their obligations to federal regulation, Wells Fargo, they will create a facility to allow those banks, Wells Fargo, to give out loans, Wells Fargo. What that's going to look like, we don't know. It sounds like they might actually buy those loans or inject cash into the bank so the balance sheets fall within the parameters that meet their own guidelines imposed by the Federal Reserve. So all of this means is that, and we made a handy chart here, small businesses go to banks, which give them guaranteed loans backed by the SBA and the Treasury, and ultimately by the Federal Reserve, which is backing the Treasury and buying bonds and all of that. But then the Federal Reserve is going to come in right through the middle, and they themselves are going to individually back the banks on loans that are backed by the SBA, which is backed by the Treasury, which is backed by the Federal Reserve. You got that? The Fed to the rescue is the point. What this means for you, Wells Fargo bank customer, is that you might still have the option to apply for a Payroll Protection Program loan through Wells Fargo if the Fed can come to the rescue, but it sounds like it's going to take at least a few days to work out the details on that. So what are your other options? We have a link in the description below to our post on Crossing Broad, and we've been updating this, where and how to apply for these loans. There are some small localized lenders in other parts of the country with banks you've probably never heard of who look like they might start accepting applications from outside businesses. But two online lenders in particular I want to call your attention to. One is Kabbage, the other is Fundera. Both of these are popular small business online lenders, online lending brokers. Kabbage does both. They give out their own loans and they work with banks to help customers find loans. So here's what you need to know about each of those. Kabbage today and Fundera both are accepting what you would call pre-applications for the Payroll Protection Program. And they might actually be well suited to do this because they have the online infrastructure and they're used to dealing with businesses that need money kind of quickly and are small and don't have tons of paperwork and professional accountants to turn over all the information a traditional bank might look for. So Kabbage and Fundera are well positioned to do this. Kabbage says as of today, they are no longer giving out loans themselves. In fact, they've pulled credit lines from current customers due to the entire economic environment. Not ideal. However, they've devoted all of their resources right now to the Payroll Protection Program. So if you hit the link down below to go to Crossing Broad, you can get the link over to the application at Kabbage. They'll take all the information you may need about the online, the Payroll Protection Program. And as soon as they get banking partners, which it sounds like they're working furiously to do because they have the online infrastructure to do this, you will be able to submit applications to those banks. It doesn't really matter which bank you get this from because the terms of the loan are all the same. We made another video, link right here. We made another video explaining it. It's backed by the SBA. The loan is forgivable if you use it for payroll costs. In that other video, we talked all about what exactly constitutes payroll costs, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter where the money comes from. It's the exact same terms everywhere. You get about 2.5 times your average monthly payroll. And if you use it for that, you can apply to have the loan, and it should be, you can apply to have the loan forgiven, which it should be. Fundera is doing something very similar. They currently have an application set up where you can submit all this information and the documents you will likely need, and they are working also furiously to find online partners. It sounds like both companies will get there relatively soon. Kabbage has been a little bit more upfront about saying this is our stated goal in the immediate term. So I'd fill out, honestly, applications for both of those sites and see which one finds a lender other than Wells Fargo to potentially give you a loan. Meanwhile, also in that link below, we have a link to the microsite at Wells Fargo where they, I presume, will update it if the Fed bails them out and they could take more than $10 billion worth of applications. So keep checking back there, but I would check. I would not wait then for them to reach out to you because guess what? They didn't do it on Sunday and now they are screwing their own customers. I am not like a hater of certain big businesses, right? I get you have to do things for shareholders, but what Wells Fargo did in the, in the mid-teens there was creating unbelievable amount of fake accounts. It was outright fraud at the detriment of their customers. And now the penalty is now costing their customers yet again because they can't give out these sorely needed loans to small businesses. I just set up more business accounts with them just 2 months ago because, I don't know, I actually kind of like their online banking, but this is very close to the final straw for a lot of people, I would imagine, who've done business with them for years, who are small businesses with less than 50 employees who fit in this window in which Wells Fargo professes that they want to help. To not take their loan is one thing, it's a government restriction, I guess, for now, but to not notify these people in advance that they might need to start seeking out alternate forms of lending, yeah, that's problematic. So shame on Wells Fargo. There might be a chance to get the loan through them still if the Fed comes to the rescue. Otherwise, hit the link to Crossing Broad down in the description below, and we link to the application pages for lenders like Cabbage and Fundera, and we'll also update as we find other online lenders. It doesn't really matter where you are in the country, you can apply for these things. So if you like what you see here, is only our second video on Soon Business. We got off to a little bit of a brisk start, but I figured some of this information would be helpful with everything with the SBA, CARES Act, Payroll Protection Program. So make sure to give us a like down below. If you have a question or comment, please leave it. I'll try and answer it. Subscribe to our channel. More videos like this coming for small business, ideas in new businesses, modern business. Going to be a lot of things different coming out of this. So we're here to help. I've been a small business owner for over 10 years. I've been following the payroll protection stuff. So trying to give you just some detailed updates where you can get them. I am a Wells Fargo customer and I am impacted by this. So I feel your pain. But yeah, please give us a like if this was helpful to you, and good luck getting that loan.